Hare Krishna, uh, dear devotees. Today we have with us His Holiness Prahaladananda Swami Maharaj, and Maharaj will share with us his time with our dear Guru Maharaj, His Holiness Bhakti Charu Swami Maharaj. Prahaladananda Maharaj was born in 1949 in Buffalo, New York. He studied at the University of Buffalo, where he received a full scholarship. In January 1969, he joined ISKCON and received both initiation that year from Srila Prabhupada. He helped open temples and distributed Srila Prabhupada's books and preached in university. He also served as the president of several temples in Texas. In 1975, he joined the Radha Damodar bus tour and traveled throughout the United States distributing books. In 1982, he entered the renounced order of life. In, in 1989, he became a member of Vaishnava Institute for Higher Education in Vrindavan. Then in 1990, he was appointed to head the GBC Committee of Health and Welfare. In 1991, the GBC made him the head of ministry for the members of the renounced order of life. He is dedicated to traveling and preaching. He is an initiating spiritual master. So we are very grateful to have Maharaj with us today, and we welcome Maharaj in our traditional way by chanting one Hare Krishna Maha Mantra. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So Maharaj, we request you to please accept the request of unmuting yourself, and then please share uh, your um, time with His Holiness Bhakti Charu Swami. Unmute your.
Okay, Hare Krishna. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Tinamane Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharane Nirvishesha Srinivadi Paskatya De Satarane. So I'm happy to be here and say a few words about Bhakti Charu, His Holiness Bhakti Charu Maharaj, but even more than my personal association, because sometimes I had some association with Prabhupada from beginning with 1969 when he stayed in Buffalo for a week, and then I saw him regularly in America from 1969 to 1975 when he used to come to Texas, and I used to go to places like San Francisco and Los Angeles and Chicago and New Brindavan. So personally, I had some association with Prabhupada over many years. Sometimes devotees ask me to tell different stories about association, but I always remember how Prabhupada, when he was asked by Trivikram Maharaj to tell him, that is Trivikram Maharaj in 1970 or 71 was traveling with Srila Prabhupada in England. And he asked Srila Prabhupada one time when he was giving Prabhupada a massage, can you tell me something about your Guru Maharaj? And Srila Prabhupada's response was, he was a Vaikuntha man. One time I had Prabhupada's association in Boston in 1969 when he came to a new temple that they had just bought there. And Prabhupada gave a whole lecture about Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Prabhupada and his association with him. But except for that, Prabhupada was not so much into telling pastimes, for the sake of pastimes. He was more or less interested, for the most part, in giving us information of what is practical in our own lives that we can apply, because this movement is a pastime of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And we have to learn not only how to see the pastime of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu as he's manifested itself through himself and through his various expansions and devotees, but we have to learn, most importantly, how to participate in that pastime. So part of that pastime for all of us is the disappearance of our gurus or our initiating spiritual master. That's an eternal pastime that goes on since time immemorial. And I'd like to share with you something from Srimad Bhagavatam concerning what it says specifically about the disappearance of the spiritual master. So this is from the 4th canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam. And it's the story of Puranjan Maharaj. Puranjan was a king. Actually, was a king named King Prachibharichi, or something like that. And Narada Muni was preaching to him because the king was in a particular position, being a king, even in Satya Yuga. Still, Narada Muni felt that there was some instruction that he had to give him. But if he gave the instruction directly, the king might have become offended. So Narada Muni made up an allegory concerning a figurative person called King Prachibharichat. Now, King Prachibharichat, he eventually left his body and he took birth as a woman. And he had a husband who was also a king. And they were both pious. And the woman's name was the daughter of Vidarbha. And eventually the king retired also with the daughter of Vidarbha, and they went into the forest. And the king went through the process in order to become self-realized. Eventually he left his body, and the king was left, and the princess, who was formerly King Prachibharichat, was left alone in the forest. And this is from Srimad Bhagavatam 4:28-48. So I'll read Prabhupada's translation, his purport to this verse. And Prabhupada writes, being now alone and widow in that forest, the daughter of Vidarbha began to lament, incessantly shedding tears which soaked her breasts and crying very loudly. So Prabhupada's purport. Figuratively, the queen is supposed to be the disciple of the king. Thus, when the mortal body of the spiritual master expires, disciples should cry exactly as the queen cries when the king leaves his body. However, the disciple and spiritual master are never separated, because the spiritual master always keeps company with the disciple as long as the disciple follows strictly the instructions of the spiritual master. This is called association of vani, words. Physical presence is called vapu. As long as the spiritual master is physically present, the disciple should serve the physical body of the spiritual master. And when the spiritual master is no longer physically existing, the disciple should serve the instructions of the spiritual master. Or Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur has said, he reasons ill who thinks that Vaishnavas die, or thou art living still and sound, that Vaishnavas die to live, and living spread the holy name around. And Prabhupada continues, whenever the Acharya comes, following the superior orders of the Supreme Personality of Godhead or his representative, he establishes the principles of religion, as enunciated in the Bhagavad Gita. Religion means abiding by the orders of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Religious principles begin from the time one surrenders to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. It is the Acharya's duty to spread a bona fide religious system and induce everyone to bow down before the Supreme Lord. One executes the religious principles by rendering devotional service, especially the 9 items like hearing, chanting, and remembering. Unfortunately, when the Acharya disappears, rogues and non-devotees take advantage and immediately begin to introduce unauthorized principles in the name of so-called swamis, yogis, philanthropists, welfare workers, and so on. Actually, human life is meant for executing the orders of the Supreme Lord, and this is stated in the Bhagavad Gita. Manmana bhava madbhakto madhyaji mam namaskuru mame vaishasi yuktaivam atmana matparayanaha. Engage your mind always in thinking of me and become my devotee. Offer obeisances and worship me. Being completely absorbed in me, surely you will come to me. The main business of human society is to think of the Supreme Personality of Godhead at all times, become his devotee, to worship the Supreme Lord, and to bow down before him. The Acharya, the authorized representative of the Supreme Lord, establishes these principles. When he disappears, things again become disordered. The perfect disciples of the Acharya try to relieve the situation by sincerely following the instructions of the spiritual master. At the present moment, practically the entire world is afraid of rogues and non-devotees. Therefore, this Krishna consciousness movement is started to save the world from irreligious principles. Everyone should cooperate with this movement in order to bring about actual peace and happiness in the world. I'll just read one other thing. Those who are interested, there's a very elaborate discussion on the disappearance of the spiritual master in this section of the Srimad Bhagavatam, 4th canto, chapter 28, and the duties of the disciples after the disappearance of the spiritual master. There's a little bit from another purport talking about the duty of the wife in the Vedic culture, after the husband leaves, to perform what's known as sahamarana, that is to leave her body along with her spiritual master, with her husband. So Prabhupada gives that an example, and now he indicates what's the relation between that and the disciple and the spiritual master's departure. So this indicates that a devotee's wife must prepare to act in such a way. Similarly, a devoted disciple of the spiritual master would rather die with the spiritual master than fail to execute the spiritual master's mission. As the Supreme Personality of Godhead comes down upon this earth to establish the principles of religion, so his representative, the spiritual master, also comes to reestablish religious principles. It is the duty of the disciples to take charge of the mission of the spiritual master and execute it properly. Otherwise, the disciple should decide to die along with the spiritual master. In other words, to execute the will of the spiritual master, the disciple should be prepared to lay down his life and abandon all personal considerations. And as Prabhupada goes on in the subsequent verses, that service to the spiritual master and his mission means that one is actually having direct association with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Krishna, as the original spiritual master, is in our hearts. Eternally, he's been accompanying us through the 8,400,000 species of life. And sometimes he manifests himself externally to us as the spiritual master or gurus. Actually, everyone who's serving the mission of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, it says they should be considered an eternal associate of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has manifested himself in many varieties, as explained in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, as the initiating guru, as the instructing gurus, and as his different expansions. And to associate with them means to associate with Krishna directly. That's called disciple succession. Serving the Vani of the spiritual master brings us into association with our acharyas and disciple succession, and ultimately with Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and his feelings of separation from Radha and Krishna in Vrindavan. And by such association, we can actually experience Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's feelings of separation and therefore actually intimately associate with Krishna and Srimati Radharani and their associates in the spiritual world. Therefore, keeping within our heart what the instructions are of Krishna and his representatives, especially the Guru, then we should serve them. And what is that service? As Prabhupada will go over in the purport, the spiritual master specifically is training us in how to come to the intermediate platform, Madhyama platform of devotional service. That's why we accept a spiritual master. At the time of initiation, we're not simply relieving ourselves of our past sinful activities by throwing grains into a fire. The principal idea is that we're making a vow to give up our false ego and accept ourselves as dasa, dasa, anudasa, the servant of the servant of the servant of Krishna. And as long as we keep, as the servant of the servant of the servant of Krishna, we accept Krishna's representative as our master, and we agree to serve his instructions eternally. And the same instructions are there for every guru. Therefore, sometimes it's said that the guru is one. Because the guru teaches us, Ishvara tad adineshu, belief sesu dvitsatsu cha, prema maitri kripo peka, yet karoti samadhyamaha. First of all, he teaches us prema, how to love. And love means love for Krishna. And Krishna includes so many different other of his manifestations, his devotees, the innocent, and even the non-devotees are all manifestation of Krishna and his different energies. So we begin by loving Krishna, and we learn about the 6 loving exchanges amongst the devotees. We learn the mission of Krishna is to save the innocent and to vanquish the non-devotees, at least their philosophy. So the spiritual master comes and he teaches us the art of and acting on the spiritual platform, specifically by engaging in these 6 different activities of a Madhyama Adhikari. And amongst the spiritual master as considered to be, as it says in the previous verse, Krishna, or in one of the verses, Krishneti yasya giritam manasadriyeta, dikshasti chat pranitibis chabhajantam isham, shushu shaya chabhajanam ananya anya, dendati sunya hridayam ipsita sangha labdya. Srila Rupa Goswami has told us that the life of the Hare Krishna movement, the life of devotional service, is the loving exchanges between the devotees. This is what actually is the life of our devotional creeper, and the spiritual masters, such as Bhakti Charu Maharaj, who we're honoring today, shows us the example, both by his instructions, by an example, how to not only love Krishna, but how to recognize which devotee is on what platform, so we can give our love to them appropriately. Love is the only basis of the only activity in devotional service, but it's manifested in different ways to different audiences. So for those who are more advanced than we are in unalloyed service to Krishna, unalloyed, undeviated devotional service, who are rendering service with more care and attention than we are, who engage in tesham sadatam yuktanam bhajantam priti purvakam. Consistent, enthusiastic, loving service to Krishna. So we learn from them. And the spiritual master gives us that discrimination, how to love everyone and how to recognize, especially those who are superior to us, and honor them as our gurus and serve their instructions, which are non-different from the instructions of our guru, which are non-different from the instructions of Krishna and his acharyas coming down in disciple succession. Our focus is in loving devotional service to Krishna. Now, the spiritual master and so many other devotees, they have their own personalities, and for our mind, we may sometimes see them in different ways. Even the neophyte may have a tendency to criticize others. But we have to learn from the spiritual master and from those who are superior to us how to love the superior devotees and avoid seeing the external activities that they are manifested as something significant, and try to imbibe within ourselves their loving exchanges with their God brothers, their service to the mission of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and their helping to raise the innocent devotees to a higher level of devotional attainment. This is Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's message to us, that we only have one business in this world. That is Yari Deka Tari Kaha Krishna Upadesh Amara Agar Guru Tanahara Desh. That whoever we meet, we have to meditate. We have to think of the example of our Guru Maharaj. We have to think of the example of our Shiksha Gurus. We have to think of the example of our Acharyas and other great personalities, such as in Shastra, and think, meditate deeply and pray to Krishna and to our spiritual masters. How can I help this soul that I've just met, I'm have association with? How can I help them advance in their relationship with Krishna? That's our only business. We have no other business in this world. Whether it be with our God brothers and sisters, or whether it be with the other devotees in our spiritual family, whether it be with the innocent people or within our family members. We will not be able to give Krishna consciousness equally to everyone, but if we're meditating and praying to Krishna and to his representatives for the intelligence, then he'll give us the intelligence how to help others become Krishna conscious, whoever we meet. And then we'll be properly situated in service to our spiritual master and to the previous acharyas. And for those who are on the same level as we are, then we have to learn how to cooperate for the mission of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. That is to help everyone come to the platform of Krishna consciousness and to work together to help the innocent come to the platform of becoming part of Krishna's spiritual family. We begin devotional service by hearing about Krishna, and then when we become more interested and more committed and advanced, then we regularly hear about Krishna and take up the process of devotional service. And after taking up the process of devotional service, eventually we become committed to following regular principles and accepting sadhana bhakti, and accepting a bona fide spiritual master. And under his directions, we learn how to act and become part of a spiritual family and do service to that spiritual family, especially by helping the innocent and each other advance in Krishna consciousness. Now, without that, if we have a spiritual family, then we have something to preach about. We have something to invite people into. And in that spiritual family, when they come, then we encourage them to gradually make progress in devotional service and become eventually not only regular sadhana bhaktas, regular attendees of our program, but also committed devotees, rendering service, and eventually becoming the core members of our society and going out and helping others become Krishna conscious too, and maintaining our mission, the mission of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu as given to us by Srila Prabhupada. So, amongst ourselves, we have to learn how to become a spiritual family and also see the greater spiritual family, because spiritual family means the spiritual family, and as is manifest in the spiritual world, where everyone is part of Krishna's family. No one is part of Krishna's family. So the spiritual masters, such as Bhakti Charu Maharaj, will be glorified, continue to be glorified, as much as the disciples cooperate with each other for the mission of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and are able to recognize and perceive through the instructions of Guru, Sadhu, and Shastra, the other spiritual masters that they have, who are assisting as the spiritual master, as our initiating Guru, is assisting Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and our acharyas in disciple succession. So there, for every devotee, there are so many spiritual masters we're also assisting their Guru Maharaj, we're assisting the Acharyas and disciple succession, we're assisting Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in helping us and helping others establish a spiritual relationship with everyone that we meet. So if we take up that mission of assisting them and working as a united spiritual family, which Prabhupada wanted, called ISKCON, then the Krishna consciousness movement will spread, and our own Guru Maharaj will be glorified and will be satisfied when he sees that, as Prabhupada said, when he sees that we're working cooperatively together to keep this mission together to spread Krishna consciousness. Then we'll keep association, then our spiritual master will keep association with us, and along with our spiritual master, we'll have the association of our Guru Parampara and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and eventually the feelings of separation, which will bring us into association with Radha and Krishna and their associates in Vrindavan. So it is not that the spiritual master leaves, because we're all eternal. The spiritual master is everyone. None of us can die. We depart from our body today or tomorrow. That's inevitable. But if we keep association with the instructions of the spiritual master and we sincerely serve them to the best of our ability, then on the spiritual platform, we'll have association with our spiritual master, and he'll teach us consistently how to serve every devotee, every living entity, and by such service to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's mission, we'll be eligible to come into the association of our entire spiritual family in the spiritual world. So, as we all know, Bhakti Charu Maharaj set a very nice example for all of us to follow in terms of loving exchanges and learning how to serve Prabhupada's mission. Prabhupada's mission is the mission of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu as Prabhupada manifested in this world in order to spread Krishna's glories and the glories of his devotees for the benefit of the suffering humanity, to bring us all back to the spiritual world. So as an important instrument for Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's mission, his followers and others can take shelter of the instructions coming down in Guru Parampara and continue on with his mission and inspire others to take up the same mission to make their lives meaningful, successful, and productive. So thank you, Hare Krishna. Any questions?
Yes, Maharaj. We have a question from devotee. Just one second. Maharaj, this question is from His Grace Jagat Jivan Prabhu. He's a devotee, brahmachari in ISKCON Ujjain. His question is, from spiritual point of view, we can understand its plan of Krishna, Prabhupada and Guru Maharaj. But what lessons we can take from this tragedy, means dealing with material nature?
Actually, we're not dealing with the material nature. We're dealing with the spiritual nature. We may think we're dealing with the material nature, but that's our own idea. As Prabhupada, when he was leaving this planet, 1977, and his words were on tape, he was explaining that everything is going on by the will of Krishna. Now, even Bhishma Dev said when he was departing to the Pandavas, he said, no one can understand the will of Krishna unless you're Krishna. So we can only understand it to the extent that Krishna wants us to do it. But nothing goes on by accident. Ultimately, sooner or later, we all leave. We can't consider that His Holiness Bhakti Charu Maharaj left without the will of Krishna. Krishna is manifesting his will in many ways that we cannot understand. But one thing we can understand is that the spiritual master actually doesn't leave. If the sincere devotee takes shelter of his instructions and follows his example, then he maintains association with the spiritual master. So, to deepen our relationship with our spiritual master, sometimes Krishna presents him, and sometimes he becomes unmanifested. But that doesn't mean we lose association with the spiritual master. It's considered that Vani is more intimate than Vapu. Of course, Vapu is also very important because it allows us to see the example of the spiritual master and allows us to take personally his instructions, to receive personal instructions. But then again, when he disappears, if we're sincere and we become more determined to serve his instructions, then our association with the spiritual master will become even more intimate. Due to our material conception, we think that the spiritual master appears and disappears, but that's our conception. It's like the sun has probably given a disappearance day of his spiritual master one time. He said, just like the sun appears on the horizon and after some time it sets. But actually the sun doesn't disappear. It just disappears from our eyesight. But from the spiritual sense, as Krishna is eternally with us in our heart, so if we keep the instructions of our spiritual master in our heart, then they'll also, or spiritual masters, they'll also continue to give us their association in even more intimate ways. Externally, of course, there's intimate association, but as we know, when the association is not only external, but it's also internal within the heart, then it's even more intimate. So one should not think that anything happens by accident, that this is all Krishna's arrangement, but we should try to be sincere and try to keep association with the spiritual master and serve the mission, not only his mission, we all have the same mission, but the mission of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu under the guidance of Guru, Sadhu, and Shastra. Just like when we pick up Bhagavad Gita, we do not think that we're reading some book 5,000 years old. We should understand that Krishna is personally speaking to us in the words of Bhagavad Gita. And in Prabhupada's purports, Prabhupada is personally speaking to us. So we should take it as something personal. And we should see what the words of Bhagavad Gita have personally to mean to us. What Krishna wants us to understand and what Krishna wants us to do practically in this world as we're here now to serve his mission. So similarly with the words of the spiritual master and his association, then we should keep them and see what does he personally want me to do. Not that he's left and now I'm free to do whatever I want, but we should actually meditate on his words even more deeply and become more serious in serving his instructions, his example, and make that the real basis of every activity of our lives. And then our association with our spiritual master will grow and grow. And then one day we'll see that he never left us. We only left him, or we're not quite conscious of him or of anything else right now. So why Krishna does this, I have no idea, but he does it all the time, since time immemorial. Charyas, incarnations have come and gone, and they give us their association eternally through following their instructions. So this is a learning process for us, that to take more seriously the instructions and keep more seriously the association with the spiritual master and not take it so lightly, so that we can be with our gurus and Krishna eternally, not just on and off or temporarily. Is that all right?
Yes, Maharaj, we have another question. This is from Barun Kumar Das. He's asking, how can I follow Guru Maharaj's advice now because my heart is after Guru Maharaj's separation? please give me some instruction that I can follow and propagate his Vani.
Well, I know you. The first time I met your Guru Maharaj was in Calcutta. I think it was right after, sometime after Prabhupada's disappearance, and he was living in Calcutta at that time. And his association was the same association I got with him at every time I saw him, whether in Ujjain or in whatever place we were meeting. It's the same message. That loving exchanges, love Krishna, serve his mission, serve the devotees appropriately, take shelter of the example, the instructions of those who are superior to us, cooperate with those who are on the same level, to serve the example and the instructions of the superior devotees, and cooperate with each other to help the innocent become Krishna conscious. Our process is very simple, and the instructions are very focused. The examples of our superior devotees are focused. Their example is focused. Work on the spiritual platform. Serve the example and the instructions of superior devotees. Cooperate with those who are on more or less on an equal level for the mission of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Forget about all the differences that we have. Try to create unity and diversity, as Bhakti Charu Maharaj would always emphasize. Under the guidance of Prabhupada, create the unity and diversity amongst ourselves, and try to convince innocent people, try to create a spiritual revolution to bring others back to the spiritual kingdom, all based upon the very simple conception that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. We don't have to convince people of a million things. We just have to convince people that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead and that everyone is his eternal loving servant by nature. And that the goal of our life, perfection of our life, what makes our life productive is to become the servant of Krishna's servants. So in order to do that, whatever we can do, if we can distribute books, that's very nice. If we can do art or music or culture, whatever we can do, theater, whatever we can do to convince people that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, to create that cultural revolution. If we do it to the best of our ability, then Krishna will be pleased, our Guru Maharaj will be pleased, and we'll be able to do something useful with this lifetime, productive, for our own benefit and for the benefit of others. So focus on this, on the mission. As said in the purport, there are 9 processes of devotional service. And in those 9 processes of devotional service, we have an opportunity to work on the spiritual platform, especially by loving Krishna, trying to love Krishna and his instructions, love the mission of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, cooperate with the devotees to serve that mission, and help the innocent people understand their relation with Krishna and be able to vanquish the non-devotional conceptions in this age that there is no God or there's some other purpose of life other than to please the Supreme Personality of Godhead by utilizing whatever energies we have in his service. So yes, Bhakti Charu Maharaj was an example of those loving exchanges. We can see there's so much outpour of appreciation for him, not only by his disciples, but also by his godbrothers. So seeing how his godbrothers and others appreciate him because of his loving exchanges with them, we should take that example and try to manifest those loving exchanges amongst ourselves, amongst all the other devotees in our society. That's the way we serve his instructions, we serve his example, and that way we keep his association. Is that all right?
Yes, Maharaj. Thank you. We have another question from Gaurav. He's from Gurgaon in India. And he's asking, I made so many plans to serve Guru Maharaj, which are possible only in Vapu form. It is very painful whenever those things come to me. What to do, Maharaj? Your unqualified servant, Gaurav.
Well, it's nice we make plans, but forget about, as Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur said, what is that again? Something about that live in times that are we now, with are thee now, in progress we will call. How does anyone know how that begins? Live in times that are with thee now, nor the future dream. Something about don't lament about the past, nor the future dream, but live in times that are with thee now, and progress thee will call. So we may have so many plans, but Krishna has his plan. So his plans are superior to our plans. So we have to be adjustable to Krishna's plan and not try to make our plan Krishna's plan. That will not be so easy. And if we're sincerely trying to please our spiritual master, if that's our idea, we're making plans to please him, well, that's very good. But when the situations change, then we're always in the idea, we always have that meditation. What does my spiritual master want me to do? Not what I want to do, but what he wanted, what does he want me to do under these circumstances? And if we pray like that, and we consult with others like that, then it'll be revealed to us, and those plans will be at least equally as good, if not better, than our own plans. Nimitra matram bhavasavasachin. As Krishna told Arjuna, that this material world is a temporary place. Kalosmi lokashe krit pravido. No one survives in this place. That time I am, Krishna says, the destroyer of the worlds, and he's engaging everyone. But he tells Arjuna, Tazmat twamutishti yasho labasva, jidva shatram bhukshvara jansramidam, maya vataniyatam purvameva, nimitra matram bhavasavasachin. Just get up and prepare to fight, and after conquering your enemies, you'll enjoy a flourishing kingdom. They're put to death by my arrangement, and you, O Savasachi, can be but an instrument in the fight. So we have to become instruments. And as we try to become an instrument, as we humbly investigate what Krishna and his representatives want us to do, then when everything becomes clear, then we'll know what to do. And if we don't know what to do, then we should humbly investigate through Guru, Sadhana, and Shastra. And then when it is clear, we can act with full determination and conviction that this is what I'm doing to please my spiritual master and his associates. This is what I'm doing to please Krishna. And then we can make progress in loving service to Guru, Sadhana, and Krishna. Anything else?
Yes, Maharaj. There is one more question. Many devotees aspiring from Maharaj are heartbroken. What will now happen to the aspiring disciples of Maharaj? What should they do now? Please guide Maharaj. Premavtar Das.
Well, as Krishna says, Chaitanya Charitamrita, the Guru is one. And as I said, it is not that we lose association with any devotee. Not only His Holiness Bhakti Charu Maharaj, we have an eternal relationship with him if we're following his instructions, but we have a relationship with every acharya in our line of disciple succession. As we're following their instructions, we'll get their association eternally by serving our Guru Maharaj, by serving Prabhupada, by serving Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Prabhupada. It's all the same instructions, And if we serve them, then we'll be with them eternally. So everyone is supposed to take a spiritual master. So if you wait and then see, following the example of whoever you're inspired by, see who you're inspired, who are giving the instructions that you believe are coming from the Supreme Personality of Godhead, become 100% convinced that this is someone I should surrender to, 100%, accept as my spiritual master, because by his instructions, I'll make progress in devotional service and eventually go back to Krishna. So wait until you find such a person who's actually going to be able to, through surrendering to him, be able to recognize and see clearly who your other gurus are, who are helping you advance in devotional service by their instructions and example and inspiration. See how others who you can, by the instructions and example of such a devotee, I can learn how to cooperate better with all the other devotees in the movement and become inspired to help the innocent and avoid the non-devotees, their association. So when you find such a personality, and there's many devotees who are sincere within our society, but you have to find one for yourself and become convinced that you want to take shelter of such a personality, that if you serve them 100%, then you get 100% return from Krishna and his devotees. Then you can take initiation, but that doesn't have to be done very quickly. One can simply honor the feelings we have towards the devotee we're aspiring for from initiation, and pray to him for intelligence, who he thinks that you'd be appropriate to take shelter of, or the devotees you should take shelter of. And from those, you'll be inspired to eventually take initiation from. But it's not that we give up if you take another spiritual master as your initiating guru, it's not that you lose all your other gurus. No, the spiritual master you take shelter of by initiation should increase your relationship with every other devotee. Not diminish it, but increase it. Anything else?
Yes, Maharaj, there is one devotee. He's asking one question. His name is Sachindra Krishna Das. He's asking Hare Krishna Maharaj, does a pure devotee's soul, upon leaving the material body, witness the activities of what's immediately proceeding, such as this memorial service?
Well, one thing's for sure is that Krishna sees everything. And whatever Krishna sees, he tells his devotees, as much as they have to understand, he tells them everything. We have to understand that the devotee is a servant of Krishna, and Krishna knows everything, but not necessarily, just as an example, not that he has to tell the devotee everything, because the devotee, he's engaged in devotional service. And according to his relation with Krishna, he concentrates on that service. But Krishna also tells him everything necessary for his devotional service. So if Krishna wants to describe or even have the devotee witness what's going on, then Krishna will do that. We cannot limit Krishna or his devotees to our own conceptions. It's beyond our understanding. So we may speculate, but all we know is that Krishna is all powerful, and his devotees, he can empower them any way he wants to. Let's see here.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, there is another devotee from New Jersey. Her name is Gita Kirti Radhika Mataji. She is asking Hare Krishna Maharaj, when exalted Vaishnavas leave this mortal world, do they go directly to the spiritual world, or they are around us for some time? In specific, will Gurudev be around us for some time?
Yeah. If you keep his instructions, he'll be with you eternally. going back to the spiritual world doesn't mean that he can't be in other places at the same time. Actually, even this world is the spiritual world, but we're conceiving of it as the material world. But it's actually Krishna's world. And if we're living in Krishna consciousness here, under the guidance of Guru and our Shastra and Sadhu, then we'll be in the spiritual world too. But as far as even one goes back to Goloka Vrindavan, generally our process is that first the devotee joins Krishna in his Leela, somewhere in this in his Leela in some material universe, and he gets trained up by the Nitya Siddha devotees how to engage in his eternal service to Krishna. And after the completion of Krishna's pastimes, he goes back to the spiritual world. The followers of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, they generally go back in two ways. Those who have the rasa for Krishna in Goloka Vrindavan, say as a gopi, they manifest a spiritual form as a gopi in the spiritual world. And simultaneously, they're in Goloka Vrindavan, in the part where Chaitanya Mahaprabhu eternally has his pastimes. So generally, they manifest a male form in Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's pastimes in that part of Goloka Vrindavan. But simultaneously, even when they're back in the spiritual world, they can also be with us if we're serving their instructions and keeping then they'll keep association with us eternally. And even when we go back to the spiritual world, they'll also be there. Therefore, it says, Chaku dan dilo ye janme janme Prabhu say. As Prabhu wrote to one disciple, that yes, it says in these verses that the spiritual master keeps association with his disciples even birth after birth. All right. So if there's no other questions, we can stop there.
Maharaj, there is one last question from one devotee from ISKCON Ujjain. He's asking, Hare Krishna Maharaj, Dandavat Pranam. Thank you very much, Maharaj, for your class. Guru Maharaj is having sannyasi disciples too. When they can start to give initiation? If possible, can you please share rules of GBC?
Well, there's a process given by the GBC to become authorized to give initiation. So they can find out from especially Ananda Tirtha Prabhu, the secretary for the GBC, what that process is. He can give you the details. Is that all right?
Yes, Maharaj. Thank you very much for your time and giving your time to all of us here who are like so much into shock by getting this news. So this is giving solace to all of us. Thank you very much for giving your precious time. And
thank you. I mean, the shock is understandable. I think every sincere devotee who has his dearmost spiritual master leave goes through the same shock, but that's the same shock that Radharani felt when Krishna left Vrindavan and went to Mathura. It doesn't lessen the relationship. The pain of separation is actually a very important component of spiritual advancement. And by such pain and separation, the relation with the spiritual master becomes even more sweet and intimate eventually.
thank you very much, Maharaj. So we are so much grateful to Maharaj for being with us today for this morning session. And we thank Maharaj by chanting one Hare Krishna Maha Mantra, by raising our hands all together. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna,
Hare Hare,
Hare
Hare Rama, Hare Rama.
Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Thank you
Srila
very much.
Prabhupada ki jai, His Holiness Bhakti Charu Maharaj ki jai, Samaveda Bhakti Vrinda ki jai, Gaur Premanande, Hari Bol.
His Holiness Prahaladananda Swami Maharaj ki